Want to accept payments electronically for your business, but can't afford those pricey payment gateways managed by the big banks? Well, there are other ways. Hey guys, I'm Kalila Reynolds, and it's time for another episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with Exim Bank's Business Advisory Service. And this service is here to help especially small and medium enterprises grow. Keep watching to find out more. Now, before I introduce my guest, make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share with a friend. Also, make sure you follow at Exim Bank JA on Instagram and all social media platforms. We have a giveaway at the end, and you need to be following Exim Bank JA in order to win. Okay, it's time to introduce my guest. Her name is Gillian Jackson. She is a blogger. She has financialsensibility.com, CENTS. And you're also a senior business advisor. Hi, Gillian. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Kalila.
So I invited Gillian on because she made a series of tweets recently talking about accepting payments electronically. And I thought it was really interesting. It's what the small guy needs, especially if you're just starting out. Mm-hmm. So how can I accept payments electronically without having a fancy website and payment gateway and all these things?
All right, well, yeah, the number one way would be to have that payment gateway and e-commerce website. That's where persons would just easily be able to use their credit card or Visa debit card to put the information in and access a product or service. But that, as I mentioned in my tweet, is a little bit inaccessible for the small business. So the second way that I wanted to mention was what's called electronic retail payment services. That's a mouthful, but in general, that's what we know as mobile money. Mm-hmm. So mobile money is another thing that's not very popular in Jamaica, but it's becoming more popular. There are 3 companies that are authorized to transact business using mobile money services. That's Quisk, ePay, and MyCash, and they're linked to different banks.
So Quisk is NCB,
right?
ePay is who?
Advantage, I believe, is the name of the
and
company.
And MyCash is
Sagicor, and they partnered with Digicel. So those companies, mobile payments involve sending money from a phone. You can top up the phone and you can easily transact by sending the payment to somebody else's phone. So that's one thing that electronic retail payment transactions cover. It also covers prepaid debit cards or prepaid cards. We don't really have that out here a lot. I know there are companies that are trying to make that more accessible, but right now, that's another way that businesses can use to accept payments that they can think about if they don't want to pay those big e-commerce fees.
Okay, so that's the electronic
retail payment services.
Electronic retail payment services. Okay, yes. So that's one way.
Right.
Give me another way.
Another way is to actually just do transfers online. So if you have a bank account and the person that you are transacting business with also has a bank account, all the banks should have an online portal for you to easily just go in, enter the information for the bank that you're sending it to, and they should be able to transact that way by paying a small fee depending on how you transfer the money. There are different ways of transferring money online. There is what's called ACH, the Automated Clearinghouse, RTGS, which is real-time gross settlement. ACH is a little bit cheaper, but it takes longer. So they do it in batches.
I was just going to ask you what the difference is, because often when you do those transfers, they ask you which one you want to use. And you get confused, like what's the difference? Right. Most people don't know.
Exactly. So when I mentioned it, people are like, what's that? What's that? So I did a tweet as well explaining the difference between ACH, RTGS, and SWIFT, which we would know as wire transfers.
Okay.
So ACH is a little bit cheaper. It's about $20 for that transaction in comparison to RTGS, which is in excess of $200, depending on the bank or financial institution that you're using. So because it's cheaper, it takes a little bit longer. RTGS is supposed to be real time, as the name suggests, real time gross settlement. So it says real time, but it takes about 2 hours in generally for the payment to reach the bank. So if I'm transferring from bank A to bank B and I use one of these methods, it's a relatively reliable and quick way once you have online banking. So each business, I encourage you to get online banking to ensure that you can track your expenses and your payments and be able to transact business that way, because it's the cheapest of the way. Once you have a bank account, it's the cheapest way to send and receive money. Because now banks are charging if you even go in branch to try and do a withdrawal or do a deposit. Some of them are charging.
So what's the difference between those and a wire transfer?
The wire transfer is normally if you want to send money overseas, or if somebody from overseas wants to send money to you, you would use the wire transfer. So that's SWIFT. I forget the acronym. It's a long acronym, but it's really a communication service that uses payment instructions from one bank to another. So if I want to send money to New Zealand, I would use a wire transfer by sending payment information through the SWIFT network to the beneficiary bank, which is what it's called.
And then normally we'll ask you for your SWIFT code, right?
Right.
The bank SWIFT code.
Right.
What's that?
So each bank who is a part of the SWIFT network has a bank identifier code, a BIC, or a SWIFT code. I think it's in excess of 20,000 banks that have this, and what it allows is that banks can communicate using that code. You'll know exactly which bank, which location that money is intended to arrive once you identify the SWIFT code for that bank.
So how do you find out what the code is?
So you'd have to probably go on your bank's website. You'll have a page on how to make wire transfers or how to do wire transfers, and it will tell you what that bank's SWIFT code is. And there's some other information that you might need to send if you're sending it to the US versus Canada, because sometimes banks will use what's called an intermediary bank. So if I don't have a relationship with a bank in Canada, I would use an intermediary bank to send the money to them first, and then they would send the money on to Canada for me.
Gotcha.
And it's actually more expensive than the other two, of course, because you're sending internationally. So it's about 30 US or a little bit over $3,000 Jamaican to do a wire transfer. So it's the most expensive. You can do it locally as well, but if we have the options of the ACH or RTGS, most people wouldn't opt for wire transfers.
So question, who pays these fees? Is it the sender or the receiver?
Sometimes, depending on the financial institution, sometimes it's just the receiver, especially with ACH. ACH is just the sender, the sender. With RTGS, some banks will charge both the sender and the receiver to receive the money, the same $200 or a little bit above that. So it really depends on your financial institutions. But what's good is that each financial institution is supposed to declare what fees they charge. So if you go on each of their websites, you should be able to find their fees, and you'll be able to see what they're charging for sending and receiving using each of these methods.
And the wire transfer method? I know for sure that the receiver pays.
Right, both sender and receiver.
Both pay?
Yes, both pay.
Okay.
Typically.
All right, so you've given us two main methods. I think that the second one was broken down into several sub-methods.
Right, sub-methods.
And you have a third one as well.
So the other one the other one would be the cash payments. So we're talking about online payments. Now we're talking about cash payments. So if you don't have a bank account and you need to make a payment to a small business or to somebody providing you a service, whether or not to be online or in person, so banks have ways of accepting payments on your behalf that are pain-free. When I say pain-free, you thinking about going into a bank now and standing up in line in these times is not very attractive.
In no time.
In no time.
Nope, not
right?
doing
Especially in these times. So the banks, some of them have made it easier for you to accept payments without having to endure standing in line. Two ways of doing so that I can talk about are through the ATM. So two banks I know for sure have cardless deposits. So they're smart ATMs that allow you to make a deposit without the use of a card. So if you don't have an account at that bank, if you have to check if your bank allows this. If you don't have an account there, you can go to any ATM that's a smart ATM. You'll select a button that asks you if you have a card or not. And if you say no, it will allow you to do check deposits and cash deposits by just entering the account number for that bank.
Which are the banks that do this?
JN Bank does it, and I believe Scotia Bank as well. Mm-hmm. So they accept payments through the ATM, which make it easier for persons to make payments to you, because they have ATMs all over the country. You wouldn't necessarily have to go to a specific location for for that person. So say if you're doing business in Westmoreland and you have an account in Kingston, it's easy for you to go to the ATM in Westmoreland.
That's very convenient, especially for customers who might not be comfortable going online to make the payment.
Right, I know, and I was looking into this as well. We still are very cash-based as a society. About 80% of our transactions are done with cash. So I recognize that in starting my business, I recognize that a lot of persons are still they're not really comfortable with the online transacting. So to make it as easy as possible, and that's what I would encourage all the businesses to do, make it as easy as possible for your customers to pay you by you understanding the payment channels and also informing them of the payment channels. So when I send out invoices for an online business I recently started, I would include the fact that you can pay at the ATM. And the other method that I was telling you about, I was going to tell you about, is the Dropbox.
Okay, we'll get into the Dropbox in the next episode. Okay. Gillian has some more great tips for us.
All right.
Thanks, Gillian.
No problem.
And check her out at financialsensibility.com.
All right.
Now here's a recap of some of Gillian's main tips. Use electronic retail payment services like mobile money. Accept funds transfers through your local bank. Accept cash using cardless deposits at the ATM. Now it's time for our giveaway. And in order to win a prize, you need to be following at Exim Bank JA on Instagram, and you answer the question on their Instagram page. On this same video, go on this video, answer the question in the comments, and you can win a prize. What does SWIFT stand for? SWIFT. Gillian mentioned it. It's actually an acronym. What do the letters stand for? Do that and win a prize over at Exim Bank JA. All right, so that's it for this episode of Money Moves JA, brought to you in partnership with Exim Bank's Business Advisory Service. And let me tell you a little bit about the BAS. They're here to provide important information on how to get your business ready for growth and expansion. And it's here to promote better business organization and formalization amongst our SMEs. Those are the small and medium enterprises. Check out their website, eximbankja.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Stay safe.